No, we're not mistaken. The Redskins actually do play tonight, Thursday Night Football, as they take on the mighty. No, they're not very mighty. The Minnesota Vikings. I mean, they've got a worse record than we do. But Trevor,
it's an ethnically insensitive name, by the way, Vikings.
Yeah.
I'm angered over that.
I'm sure that blonde-haired, blue-eyed people everywhere are offended. Trevor Matich is on the line right now to help us dissect what we're likely to see tonight. So tell me, as we face the mighty, actually not all that mighty, not very good Vikings, what are the things we should look for here, Trevor?
Well, we should see if the Vikings are angering. You guys are sure not being unpolitically correct.
We're giving him bulletin board material.
Whoa,
here,
yeah, holy smokes! We should look for right now the Redskins finally having a team that they ought to be able to go steamroll. And the thing is, the Vikings are looking at the Redskins as a team that they can get well on. The Vikings are 1-7. They are the worst team in the league. They've lost 4 in a row. They are reeling at quarterback. They can't stop anybody, and they see the Redskins as their chance to turn it around.
Oh. Really?
Yeah, and so this is big for the Redskins. Because
is there any argument to be made that they might?
Well, yes, they're an NFL team, and they have Adrian Peterson,
that's
arguably the best running back ever to play. Certainly one of them. So they can beat anybody. But here's the thing: the Redskins are not as bad as their record as they start.
You're right.
The Redskins are a team that had the ability all along to play much better than they've been playing, and I think that goal line stand last week at the end of the regulation against San Diego may have been the turnaround of the season, and we'll find out if it really was, if the Redskins play well and beat the Vikings.
I mean, isn't it almost like sort of starting to shape up like it might be last season all over again? They started slow, then they came on strong through the second half of the season?
It very well could be. And it wouldn't take magic in order for it to happen. Because RG3 as a quarterback, we know has the ability to make plays. We know that the offensive line has stayed healthy again this year, which is important, just like they did last year. And Alfred Morris, the Redskins running back, is averaging over 5 yards a carry. He leads the NFL in yards per carry for backs with over 100 carries. So the pieces are in place, along with an improved defense, for this to happen, not because they got lucky or because the schedule was favorable, but because they have the capability to do it.
Trevor Matich, speaking of great running backs, I'd like to take you off the field a little bit because there's some news in the NFL that I'd love to get your comment on, considering you are a former NFL great. Tony Dorsett is in the news this morning. We're finding out now that he has been diagnosed with CTE. He's one of the few living former NFL players who's been diagnosed with this. By the way, also former Redskin Leonard Marshall is part of this story too. What is the word amongst the league right now with regard to these traumatic head injuries and the fact that it seems to be a growing concern within the league and within the Players Association?
There's great concern, and I think you have to separate the league from the players in this. From a player standpoint, it's a very human thing. I remember when a few years ago, not necessarily dealing with brain injuries, but injuries in general. A lot of the older guys can't get insurance. They don't have the money to buy their own, to buy retail health care, and they're in terrible pain. I mean, these guys, it takes them an hour to get out of bed in the morning. People like Dorsett, their memory is deteriorating. Brett Favre is talking about forgetting entire sections of his daughter's life right now.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, I mentioned that this is diagnosed with living quarterback or living players because the dead players, some of them die because of suicide. I mean, it's such a tragic thing if they
right.
have.
And so from a player standpoint, I remember when Mike Ditka, one of the toughest men ever to play or coach in this league, a few years ago went up to Congress in an inquiry up there, and he said this, and this broke my heart. He said, "Don't make proud men beg." So on the one hand, you have the humanity on that side. And by the way, I believe the life expectancy of a former NFL player as of about a decade or two ago was 55 years.
God.
And so I there are reasons why I think that is getting longer now.
Yeah.
But on the NFL side, there's two parallel tracks. One is they do care about those players. But the second is they also care about business. And these lawsuits mean that the NFL has to be very careful what they admit to.
Well,
they
just settled a $765 million settlement last month. The details aren't out, but yeah, you're right. That looms large for the league as well.
And as long as we're off the Redskins for a moment, I have to get you to weigh in on this thing that everybody's talking about in the NFL, which is about Jonathan Martin and Richie Incognito and whether or not there is bullying that takes place inside locker rooms of the National Football League franchises. What do you have you ever experienced or seen things like you said, man? That's a little beyond light hazing.
Yes, I have, and it's happened to me. And when I was a young player, and I didn't know enough to know how to stand up for myself my first year, and I learned quickly. My second year, I fought every day in training camp, because you have to establish yourself sometimes. As a matter of fact, when I got to my second team. In NFL teams, it's like going to a new team is like going to a new fourth grade class. There's a hierarchy in place. There's a social structure in place with cliques and bullies and everything else. You want to fit in, right?
Was it out of control?
It can be. And the thing about
give me an example of something that happened to you. You don't have to name names.
Well, something happened to me. I was naive when I came into the league. I wasn't weak. I just was unaware that it was such a brutal business and that teammates would push you to see what you're made of, to see if you're going to fight, to see if they can count on you to be a fighter. And when they pushed me in practice and in complex, my first training camp, I thought it was just because I wasn't doing something right. So I'd run a play and in practice do well, and then after the play I'd get hit in the head as I walked back to the huddle, and I was thinking, oh, well, maybe I did something wrong. Well, you can't respect that. I don't respect that looking back.
So, Trevor, you said that you fought back. You learned to fight back.
I learned to fight back.
So what is your opinion, and what do you think the opinion of the other players are of Jonathan Martin, who instead of fighting back, he went to his agent, he went to the league, he basically went to the Human Resources Department to sort of file a complaint rather than doing what you did and what I'm guessing other players did, which is stand up and fight back.
Yeah, and the thing is, all the information is not out yet about what he did or didn't do in response. I mean, maybe he tried to do things. I do know this, though, that ultimately, if they're trying to toughen him up, then that's one thing. But there came a point where Martin was responding poorly to this, and it became abusive. I mean, incredibly abusive.
Yeah.
And he started to deteriorate rather than rise above. And at that point, especially during the season, Incognito was his teammate. His teammate, Martin, needed help. He needed support. He needed his brothers to rally around him, and instead it appears that Incognito and other guys on that line continued to double down and drive him into the ground emotionally. Now, during the season especially, that's an egregious offense. Forget the humanity
of it. It hurts
the
team at that point. Yeah,
you're trying to win.
Yeah.
Deal with that stuff in the off season. In the meantime, help Martin help you win. Instead of doing that, they drove him into the ground and they lost their starting left tackle and their starting guard Incognito.
Well, I'm glad we went there. Quickly, prediction on the game tonight?
I think the Redskins win. I think they turn this into the first two-game winning streak of the season, and they get on a roll.
All right. That's what I'm hoping for. Listen, thank you very much, Trevor Matich.
All right, guys.
Always a pleasure.